I am in the last minute preparations for this year's camping trip where I spend the entire weekend doing dumb stuff. And after everybody kind of starts settling down, one of the biggest things is where we go, there's really not that much internet. We're talking Verizon, only one bar, but not anymore. Oh yeah. What's up YouTube, Jason here with Byte My Bits, and today's quick video is actually not going to just be about Starlink. Instead, it's going to be about Starlink and the Ethernet adapter that should allow me to hook up a more powerful, broader range Wi-Fi access points than the Starlink. Because, I mean, the built-in router from Starlink, pretty decent, but it's not great. And I'm trying to cover as much land as possible. So, in today's video, I'm going to set up the Starlink, make sure everything's good, then set it up to connect to my home network and see if I can just magically plug in my home router and everything start working, which I think would be really cool. Especially because like in the future, if I want backup internet and I use Starlink connected all the time and it can automatically kick in as backup internet when my main internet goes down, which it does quite often, actually, at least once a month, it'd be cool to test this out and just to see exactly how well it'll work. My very first Starlink video, this was borrowed from a guy that follows me on YouTube, and I was very appreciative. I was like, hey, cool, I've never checked out Starlink before. So, you know, that was neat. So now I hit him up, I'm like, bro, I want to use Starlink in my little camping thing. Can I do that? He said, yes. Also, I have an Ethernet cable adapter thing. Sweet. Oh, wait. Okay, so he bought this really super expensive Pelican case and did all this like mesh foam stuff. So I gotta make sure I don't mess this up. I'm not gonna cover most of the setup process because honestly, I've already done that on a video. This is literally like my entire excitement was that the built-in router that they give you does not have any kind of Ethernet port. You literally have to purchase an extra add-on, which is kind of frustrating, just to be able to get Ethernet access right there. So the problem with that too was that it was on back order, or it is. I mean, it takes like months to get this in some areas. So yeah, let's just go directly to setting up. So instead of plugging the dish through the very long cable directly into that, instead it runs into this and then that plugs in underneath there. So I got it all powered up. It's just got to go through its little thing. Here shortly, that thing's going to start moving. It'll like position itself and do the satellite things. See, look at that, satellite things. Now that I got everything set up, I just wanted to make sure that the Wi-Fi was accessible because he has been loaning this out to other people. So I didn't know if maybe they put a password on it, but now I got to do the tricky part of unplugging this with one hand. Can I do it? Can I do it? Yeah! Of dropping it down into my server room. Wow. Okay, I need to clean that. Which really isn't too bad. It's just a matter of, I've already put a little hole in the screen and you can see all my ventilation projects that I've done. I've snipped the solar power wires. I still haven't removed them all completely, but I snipped it just to hook up all this other stuff because I don't actually have any solar panels. So all I have to do is just feed this in through the already ruined, come on, you can do it, there we go. Feed that in through there, and then drop it down there because that is where I have access inside. There we go. All right, look at that. Professional. Now I can set up the UDM Pro to use backup internet or whatever, but I'm not gonna do any of that because literally this is just a proof of like functionality. Plug it into Starlink. It's over there just to prove it works. I'm gonna make my whole network come alive. And just like that, it picked it up. It did not even require me to disable or bypass it. It's just running through it. Like Starlink is still active. I mean, I can disable the Wi-Fi if I want to on the Starlink router, which I probably will. But for now, for this test, shit, that just kind of worked. Let's run a speed test real quick. The built-in speed test. Let's see what this is gonna pull. Come on now. Oh, that is terrible. I mean, if you have no internet, that's really good. But when I was testing this earlier, it was over 150. And just like a mere 10 minutes later, it's already optimizing and getting just a little bit better. Now that I know I can get everything working properly, gotta dig into my deep storage, find a router that I know has better signal than the default one, and then get this hooked up and ready for the trip. That way, it's just plug and go. Now I have the satellite and everything hooked up. I have it ran to my basement. I'm going outside right now. I have everything ran to my basement, and I wanted to take a second to explain my decision with running an external router. In my very limited testing, I found that the range on the Starlink built-in Wi-Fi router can be kind of limited, especially when you compare it to a higher end, let's say a Synology something 6600 AX. Not to mention the availability of radios. So with the Synology system that I'm using, it has more radios. It's got like 3 different channels. It does the 5.9 gigahertz. So like if you have people like for me with the new iPhone, it's just got more options. Not to mention it has all those external antennas that just stick up. So what I'm gonna do is just a real quick test. And here's what I'm gonna try. I have the Starlink and I have the Synology router fairly close to each other, which by the way is a bad idea, but I have them fairly close to each other. The same everything, just kind of in the same area down in my basement. So I'm going to walk out, and about every 50 feet, give or take 25 feet, I'm going to connect to both the Synology router Wi-Fi access, SSID, and the Starlink. Individually, do a speed test, and I'm gonna see which one is gonna give me the best performance overall. Not that it matters, still gonna run Synology, because it's all, in this case, we're talking 40, 50, 60 people that are gonna be possibly connected to this Wi-Fi. So I'm going to need those extra antennas in order to be able to accommodate everybody. Very first one, we're talking into the backyard. The router is right around the corner, right around there, down in the basement. So it's like kind of right there. Okay, that quickly backfired. Apparently having routers sitting on the ground in the basement and trying to access them through a bunch of dirt, even though I can still, get the Wi-Fi connected to my phone, the speeds are like 2 to 5 megabits per second, and that's right in the backyard. So let me fix my problem. Honestly, I don't know what I was thinking, but this is gonna be a much more ideal setup because, camping trip's gonna be a wide open field anyway. So why the hell did I put that in the basement? I have no idea, but let's back up and try this again. I get some really interesting results. The Synology router is about 20 megabits slower than the Starlink router standing right here. So I don't know if that's because it's double natted still, because I haven't disabled the Starlink router, but I'm gonna continue my test, even if it means I'm completely wrong. Oh my gosh, it's the same thing. I'm further away, but Synology is slower. I'm gonna keep going. I swear if you jump in that water, I'm gonna be pissed. I'm all the way back here. Finally, it kind of paid off for me a little bit. The signal back here is better. Actually, I don't want to say that. The signal back here is pretty close as far as the rating in iPhone, but I was able to get about 20 megabits per second more with the Synology. However, I can't say that that's better yet because I know that speedtest.net just kind of fluctuates by itself. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna walk down this way. Woo! There for a second I thought I was gonna have to say that I was completely and utterly wrong. My house is back. It's back there. See it? All the way. It's all the way back there. Starlink is crippled at these levels, like at these distances. We're talking 3 to 4 megabits per second, and upload is just atrocious. So, the camping ground is gonna be huge. So this is definitely, I was worried there for a second. But the Synology is definitely coming in and actually proving that it's worth. I'm gonna keep going just for the hell of it, but I think this proves my point. And to answer any questions you might have about this, yes, I have ran repeated tests back and forth, going back and between each router, and then running the speedtest.net just because I know speedtest.net can be consistent. I'm just running it consistently over and over again to try to verify that I'm getting repeatable results. I have definitely found the edge. So that house right there, that one's mine. This is how far I am. I don't know how many yards that is, but that's how far it is. I can pick up signal from the Synology router, and I can sometimes pick up signal from the Starlink router, but it's very hard. Sometimes it'll just like completely disappear off the list. But all the way out here with the Synology router, I'm only getting like 0.5 to 2 megabits per second. So this is the very edge, however far this is. Starlink is like 0.5 was the max, and that's if it didn't error out. So I'm gonna go a little bit closer, and I'm gonna try to see if I can get better results that actually make more sense, because this is like the cusp of failure all the way out here, you know? Yes, this is it. This is the magic spot. I'm still really far away. I only walk like 20 feet, but out here I can get, God, I just did it. It's like 25, maybe 30. It might have went up to 40, but let's just say 25. I got 25 megabits per second from Synology and 2 to 3 megabits per second from the Starlink. So point is proven. Now I have another question in mind. Am I being hindered by running a double NAT? Because I have not disabled the wireless router in Starlink yet. It has the option to completely bypass the Wi-Fi router that's built into Starlink. So now I kind of wonder, am I gonna get the same results if I bypass that and I get rid of that whole double NAT thing going on? Fun fact, all the way out here, just off the access point that's inside my house, getting 25 megabits per second just off my personal network. I'm gonna try to not to bore you with all the details because it's almost dark outside. I've been out there for probably the better part of an hour and a half, running test after test after test at all different locations, everything. Oh my God, dog and cat, like you guys, seriously, could you just please, just for like 5 minutes? So anyways, I learned a couple things. The first thing is that there is definitely a downside if you get Starlink to disabling or bypassing the Wi-Fi, right? There's no way, even if you have remote management set up with Starlink, which this does not make sense whatsoever, but there's no way to actually re-enable Wi-Fi without doing a factory reset. On the Starlink router itself. God damn it. Back to the point, if you disable, you cannot re-enable. So keep that in mind. Starlink is like, it's hardware activated, so I would imagine that if I do a hard reset, factory reset, like before I return it to the person of which who let me borrow this system, that it's not gonna have any kind of issues. I will make sure, but still, that's kind of a weird thing that you can't do. So that's a downside. Number two, because of, I'm gonna say that there was really not that much of an improvement in speed, bypassing it versus having it active. The only thing that I could tell was just the quality of connecting. Like if you use your phone and you're like way out there, you're trying to connect and stuff, like the quality, the reliance, the reliability, the speed of which it gets, the internet connection, it kind of does everything. Like the experience is just better. And that is really mainly, I think, going to be from the congestion of, having less Wi-Fi. Like if you have multiple routers next to each other, there's going to be interference. They're going to be fighting with each other for airtime. So if you take one router out of the equation, you're going to get better. So I cannot say that it's better than the Starlink router just based off of that, knowing what I know with Wi-Fi. So less congestion is better. But what I can say is that walking out back and forth, as far as I did reliably, I did get better speeds all around. There were a lot of up and downs, which is why I was out there for so long running speed tests, different servers. Like there's so much like room for fluctuation when it comes to speedtest.net app that it's just really hard to say, this, is definite set in stone. If I could host on my own server and it was an internal network, yada, 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 that'd be great. But since I'm going Starlink versus whatever, it's just not an option. If I had more time, I could hook a second computer up to my router and then I could actually, maybe, I don't know, this could work, but I could actually self-host my own speed test, but I don't have the time for that right now. Number C, no matter what the results would have been, I would have still ran the Synology router or just any kind of like, secondhand or consumer router because of the management, because of the extra radios. I already said this, but having the extra ability to support more people on the single network, especially in an area that's going to be heavily congested with a bunch of people, that is where this is going to come into play. Even if the speeds are comparable or maybe just a little faster or maybe they're exactly the same, having a router capable of handling load balancing all those different clients at the same time is way more valuable than this little Starlink router. So that is unproven. I have not tested that, and I don't even know how I would test that. But just based off of the level of what my router is, the Synology router is, with the amount of channels it has, the bandwidth capability of that router versus what the Starlink basic Wi-Fi router is, it's just one of those things. There's no way to ignore numbers. Like, there's just no way. The only reason why in this very specific scenario I might run both, like disable or re-enable the Wi-Fi router, is that if I'm going to be putting them in different areas. And that would make sense. Like if I have the campground, let's say the campground has the Starlink and everything set up to it, and then I just brought out like a 100-meter or whatever foot, whatever Ethernet cable, and I ran a second router down by where, you know, we kind of all party. That doesn't really make sense because really people get on the internet once they start settling down and actually migrating towards the camp. But hypothetically speaking, if you're in a situation where maybe you want to run two of them, you might, you know, have better signal being closer to one or the other, or you will have better speed and signal being closer to one or the other. I mean, that's just basics. Overall, I think this has been a very interesting experience. Plugging this into my UDM Pro, my network, has been amazing. The speed was great. It just switched over flawlessly. There was no big deal whatsoever. I think it would make fantastic backup internet. Yes, it's $110 a month in order just to have the luxury of backup internet, which is the reason why I don't have it yet, but it is really great. It picks it up. It just works. It functions, and that is great. Do I think it's stupid that Starlink makes you buy a separate Ethernet adapter? Absolutely. But I just love Starlink. I have so much to do. I have to charge a bunch of batteries, get a bunch of things ready for this weekend, and I literally am just running out of time. So hopefully you guys enjoy this video. Hopefully it gave you a little bit of insight to what some of the abilities of the Starlink router versus a consumer, the distance, the range, etc. Just give you some ideas. Hopefully that it added something to your lives. Thank you for watching. Complain or dislike below, and have yourself a great day.